Welcome back to this week's episode of Real Talk. Tanya here coming at you from Boston. It is a beautiful, beautiful day finally, and we are so excited for today's guest. You know, when we were talking about the power of exchange and how your exchange story is not just your year in the US, UK, or Ireland, but it is every step of your life. Your exchange story is just a new chapter as you take on new adventures. Today's guest is so special because his exchange story starts not 10 years ago, not 20, but 30 years ago, right here in the United States. He's going to share a little bit about what it meant to come to the US in 1988 with EF and what he's doing here in Boston today. I think that Alex embodies what it means to be an exchange student and to be a part of the family, so we are so excited to have him. You don't want to miss, so hang tight. We'll be right back with Alex. So you went from Germany, you landed in Kentucky, and things have changed dramatically since 1988. I was the class of 2009, and Skype had just come out. So really sketchy, barely worked. Nowadays, people pick up FaceTime. They can talk to their family or their friends no matter what. What was it like for you going across the ocean in a way different time than right now?
So I don't think there's any way of describing that without sounding like I lived somewhere in the Stone Age, right? But it was just the reality. Internet had not been invented, it was not there. So the only way to be in touch was either by letter, like mail, actual snail mail, or by picking up a phone, right? Phone was virtually impossible because it was ridiculously expensive. And believe it or not, there were certain crunch times, like on the weekends, you could barely get a line out. It was really absurd. I know this is really hard to believe nowadays, but it was a landline, right? And you'd have to call. There were all these hoops you had to jump through, and then maybe you'd get a connection. And if you made a connection, you would try to. We always set a timer or something, right? Like we'd have a timer or something else sitting nearby to make sure we don't spend too much time, because every minute was anywhere between $5 or $10, right? So it was ridiculously expensive. So this was really reserved for sort of special occasions like birthdays, family members, and that type of stuff. And that was about it. And even then it would be like, hello, are you there? Happy birthday. I want to wish you happy birthday. Everything's good here. Okay, talk to you soon. Okay, bye. That would be sort of the extent of those conversations, right? So I would say on average, throughout the year, I maybe averaged out to maybe once a month. We would talk on the phone, maybe. But letters, I always had a system. I would try to write a letter at least to my parents every Friday. That was sort of my ritual. Friday after school, if there wasn't a football game, which was a big deal to go to in Kentucky. So often I had to go to the football game, of course, and support the team. But if not, I was at home writing a letter. Then I would send it out. Maybe sometimes that would lead into the weekend, and I would do more writing on the weekend, but then that letter would go out. And of course, my family was a lot nicer than I was. I would often get maybe 2 letters a week.
Wow.
So that was nice. But again, the mail, it could take anywhere, the best was maybe 5 days for mail to get to me. But sometimes it would take up to 10 days, right? So sometimes I would get 3 or 4 letters all at once, which then felt like, a special, like Christmas or something, special occasion. But normally I would get sort of a letter Tuesday, maybe one on Friday, and then maybe 2 on Monday, and whatever. So it was nice. And then of course some of my friends and others that would also send letters. The other thing we did, and this is also really archaic, cassette tapes.
No.
So we did, oh yeah. One of the first things that I bought with my sort of spending money that I had was a small cassette tape player where I could also record. And so I would record tapes, and then especially with my buddies, we would send recorded tapes back and forth, because it was awesome, because we could tape some off the radio, yes. We would tape some music that we were listening to at the time, and then do some narration and talk on it as well. And the same from them. I'd get all these crazy mixtapes and tapes that weren't just, some of them I still have probably, somewhere in the basement, but tapes where we'd be talking and laughing, and everybody would be there. It's like, oh my God, so-and-so just showed up, wants to say hi, or whatever. That would be it. So it's, I guess, almost like Skype, except with a 5 to 10 day delay.
And no visual and a little crackly on a
There is
tape.
that. Yes, there is that. Hey, audio quality was good.
It's amazing. And
yes.
Hopefully you still have those, because I bet that it would be super cool to share with your children. And I think that, let's fast forward quite a bit here. You're here in Boston with me. If you guys can't tell, it's actually a beautiful day in Boston. We're overlooking the skyline. And Alex is sitting here with us, and there's quite a journey that led you from, teenage you in Kentucky to being here, and your family's here. Your children are actually American, dual citizens, right?
Dual citizens, yeah.
Sort of like, if you can even summarize the last 30 years, what?
I feel like I have to be quick in terms of summarizing the last 30 years because a lot of stuff has happened.
It's a lot. It's if you could think of your 17-year-old self, what from that do you think has brought you here to raise a family?
I think a big part was, and that's definitely, I know that's not part of the question that you just asked me, but definitely a way in which I changed. I think my life was always, even though I had this urge and desire to get out there into the world and see and live in another country, I think ultimately I was always sort of dead set on, I'm going to go back to Germany and I'm going to become a teacher. That's what I wanted to do, right? My oldest sister, who I admire deeply and still love very much, she actually just retired from teaching. She was a teacher all her life and loved that job, and to me that was sort of the inspiration. That's all I ever wanted to do. So to me that was almost autopilot. Yeah, I'll go over there and do this now, but then I'll come back and I'll become a teacher. But long story short, that did not work out that way, right? I did come back, I did end up, completing school and then going to university in Germany. But already going to university, the first thing I did, as I was in my first semester at university in my hometown, I was already looking at ways of getting back over here to the United States somehow. Not Kentucky, but like wherever I could go, right? Not that I minded Kentucky, and I ended up going back there later on. I was there for grad school, University of Louisville. I spent 4 semesters there, but I really was just very eager to get back out there. So long story short, there were summer semesters in London. There were a couple of years undergrad and a couple of years grad school in the United States, various locations. There was international work in between. There was a stint in the military. There was a stint working for the National Olympic Committee. Which then brought me back to the United States, working for the Olympic Games in 1996 in Atlanta. There was then actually me finishing a teaching degree, only student teaching in Germany for a short while, but really student teaching in the United States as well. And at that point I was very much hooked. But the other thing that happened at that point, because of all my sort of traveling around and being here and there and everywhere, I had come across advertisements by EF looking for tour guides, tour directors, right, for EF educational tours. So these are people that would basically lead American and Canadian high school groups primarily around Europe, right, on like 10-day guided educational programs. So they were looking for people, and I applied, and I got the job, went to the training, and I did that then for many, many years. And that's really what kept me tied to EF and to the EF family of companies, if you will, and eventually then had me back here, this time in the headquarters here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, working for not high school exchange year, but working for educational tours. So I've been here now since 2005 in the office, so that's 13 years now, geez. 13 years working here in this office. Before that, again, I had some work freelance in Europe, but 13 years here working for EF in various capacities, always for educational tours though, but always, of course, with a close affinity and love for high school exchange year, because that's how I got started in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so Alex and I actually were on the same team when I first found myself at EF. And you all know this, that I love exchange, and I talk about my exchange. And the moment I found out that you were also an exchange student, I freaked out, right? Because
she did freak out.
I did freak out. I was also like right out of college and super excitable.
True.
It's pretty much the same as now, but
not much has changed. No.
But it was just one of those things that I was at 6 years after my exchange, and it felt so real and vibrant in my life, and I wanted to always be that way. And then to meet Alex and to see it in you that all these years later, it's still very much a part of who you are. And your exchange story is just another chapter and another chapter and another chapter, and now I think it's kind of an interesting world you live in, because your kids are dual citizens and they live in a second language in the same way you did. Do you think as a parent you could do what your mom did? Let your kids go on exchange and sort of like them continue your exchange story?
Absolutely not. I'm kidding. Of course I could. I'd like to think, but I think, again, I think it would be incredibly hard.
Yeah.
So that's why that half-jokey response. Of course I would encourage them to do that. Of course I would want them to go follow their dreams and pursue this, not because I did it, but because I would hope and would like to think that they too would want to get outside their comfort zone and see a little bit more of the world and experience another culture, another life firsthand. I mean, it's, in a way, to this day, I feel incredibly fortunate that I basically had, in some ways, I had two families, right? I had my own family growing up in Germany, and then that'll always be that family. But I have that family in Kentucky, and I was able to visit again this past summer. I was there. It's not as frequent as I used to do it, but still, I was there again last summer, and I stayed there, and I brought my 2-year-old and 4-year-old with us. We left the older ones here, but we brought the young ones with us, and it was just really, really great for them to connect there and to have that connection and to see children, nieces, grandchildren out there. It's like having two families. One family here, they'll always be my American family, and I have my German family back home. And how many people can say that they've had this opportunity to have two families, for very good reasons, because you chose to do this and participate in this. And for me, at least, it's worked out really, really well. So yeah, I would never hold back my children from pursuing a similar dream, provided they would want that. I equally wouldn't want to push them to
of
it.
course,
I mean,
it's a lot.
They would have to come to that themselves, right? Because it is, when I think back, there were definitely times when I would feel very, very lonely or out of place or whatever, and I would sort of course, try to counter that by just totally throwing myself into life at an American high school, which is very easy to do and very exciting to do. But it wasn't all gold. There were definitely there was certainly times when things felt a little hard, or I was homesick, or I missed my family, my German family, and that was always tricky.
Yeah, and I think that we want it to be glitz and glam and beautiful and what we see online, and it's not, but that's what makes it so good, right? Like,
sure.
I was so proud that it's been 10 years and I still see my host family, but to hear that you brought your family back to see your host family, and it's your 30-year anniversary this summer.
Yep.
It's so inspiring, and it's so cool to just think about kind of your parents gave you the opportunity to seize the world, to make it your own, and I don't know, I'm just really happy that you're able to share your story with us, because I'm sure everyone is going to be equally as stoked as I am. But if we could, I just have one more question that I think you don't have to rush into answers, because all of us tend to stutter when we think of it, is if you could be looking at 17-year-old Alex who's about to come on exchange, hindsight is 20/20, knowing what you know now, what would you want to say to him?
I think, that's sort of a age-old question, right? Like, how would you live your life differently? Honestly, I wouldn't do anything differently. But if I would have a chance, as you put it, to speak to my younger self, I would definitely just say, be courageous. Don't be afraid. I think, again, I don't really have regrets about it. Everything happened for a reason. Everything happened wonderfully. It worked out wonderfully. But I think I was often timid because my English wasn't there yet, and I felt, I had coming from late 1980s Central Europe, you had very different fashion sensibilities and musical interests perhaps than your peers in the United States, or especially in Kentucky. So you'd feel a little, I don't know how to put it, I would often feel very shy, I would say, and I would feel like, oh, maybe I don't belong here or whatever, and I would always often question myself and feel very insecure about things. And that's the only thing I wish I could sort of tell myself, don't be insecure. Everybody is going through teenage years and is insecure in some way or another, but you don't have to feel insecure about whatever sort of deficiency you might have in speaking the language, or in understanding everything that's going on, or in not sharing that culture. In fact, today I look at this as sort of more of a contribution that I made in some way, and the learning that took place around these cultural differences. But back then, I think I was a little scared around that, and I would just tell myself, have more courage. That's it.
That's so great, and I think it embodies who you are now. I mean, obviously we know each other within the world of EF, but everyone knows Alex, and you can tell that he's a tour director by how great you speak about things and share your story. And we are super honored to actually have you in the Exchange family and to have you share your story, because I hope that we can have a fraction of an exchange chapter that you have had. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I mean, ultimately it was EF that made that possible for me, right? And I wouldn't be sitting here today, which is such a weird, circuitous thing. I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't this very company that I sort of stumbled into and that made this exchange possible, then set me on this trajectory that has me now living here. And actually, I live here, but you know this about me. I'm back and forth all the time.
Yeah.
I leave again tomorrow to go home to Germany and
Amazing.
you know, for work and business, and it's nice that I'm able to combine this. And again, EF made all that possible for me. So thank you.
That's great. And hopefully some of you will be sitting here in 30 years, which like phones probably won't exist, YouTube probably won't exist, it'll be holograms, but we hope that this will just keep getting people excited to join this really crazy, kind of weird, and also, as you would put it, courageous family.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys.
Bye.
And that's the official wrap of the first season ever of Real Talk. Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of these honest, authentic, and raw exchange stories. There is more to come. The best is yet to come, and I hope that we have an opportunity to include your exchange story. So make sure that you write below if you're interested in being a part of Real Talk, and the next season is the best to come. So make sure you join us right here at EF High School Exchange Year, Real Talk.